Hi everyone, my name is Dhruv. These are my co-founders Varun and Arman, and our company is Beam Commerce. We build software to boost sales for e-commerce stores. A month ago, when we pitched at the NVC group round, our monthly recurring revenue was $35,000. In the upcoming month, we expect to do $50,000 in monthly recurring revenue, still fully bootstrapped, because what I'm about to show you is incredibly effective. Over the last several years, the cost of digital marketing has increased by 17.5 times. And this affects all businesses, the small retailers relying on Facebook ads to stay above the water, and the large-scale direct-to-consumer brands, whose million-dollar marketing budgets couldn't account for this. The world thinks e-commerce is booming, and although it's gaining popularity, the infrastructure that allowed e-commerce businesses to quickly acquire customers is slowly collapsing. Spending more and more on ads is just not an option anymore. Instead, store owners are looking for ways to increase the average amount an existing customer is spending on their store. But when a customer is shopping online, there's a million questions going through their mind. What's the best color? Will they like it? What's the right size? And this can be a little overwhelming at times. But there's a feeling of incredible excitement and euphoria when they've just decided what they're going to buy and they complete the checkout process. Call this the transaction moment. And that moment is magical. You have their undivided attention, and there's a huge opportunity to change both the customer relationship, but also change the economics of that transaction. And that's why we build Aftersell. Normally, after a customer completes their checkout, they're usually redirected to an order confirmation or a thank you page. Aftersell changes this by implementing a new page with offers that appear after the checkout, but before that thank you page. The customer can then accept the offer without having to re-enter any of their information. Customers are 7 times more likely to engage with these offers because they've just completed a transaction. The interesting thing, though, is that e-commerce is just getting started. The pandemic accelerated the adoption of e-commerce by over 10 years. To put this into perspective, this is how many more people would use food delivery services such as Uber Eats more frequently after the pandemic. And this is how many more people would use video conferencing platforms such as Zoom more frequently after the pandemic. And this is how many more people would shop online more frequently after the outbreak. E-commerce is here to stay, and this makes e-commerce apps one of the largest market opportunities in SaaS today, with a total market of $37.5 billion. Our business model is to charge subscription fees for using our apps. Currently, Aftersell is our own paid app, which uses an order volume-based pricing model, where we charge based on the number of orders the store has. Along with Aftersell, we have apps that help with store design, order tracking, and more. We have over 7,000 active businesses in our suite of apps. And we're taking all of our apps paid by Q3 this year. We expect to drive $50,000 in monthly recurring revenue in the next month. But the metric we're most excited about is the value we're able to drive our customers. Our merchants have made over $35 million in additional revenue using our apps. Our competitors have been around for a long time, and they've done an incredible job at laying the foundation for e-commerce to grow into what it is today. But we have a few key competitive advantages. First, we're building an ecosystem of apps that share data. E-commerce apps were created to help store owners do some of the extra work of running an online business. But this got more crazy with more apps, since the apps themselves would have their own problems. They're too hard to set up, they don't talk to each other, or they're incompatible with your store theme. Beam is a suite of apps that uses the same design pattern so anyone technical or non-technical can set up the apps in under 5 minutes. We offer seamless interoperability, which means our apps talk to each other about everything. And we use smart algorithms to make our apps compatible with all store themes right out of the box. Our multi-app business model also allows us to sell multiple solutions to the same customer, giving them a consolidated source of great tools. This basically means when a customer likes one of our apps, they tend to try more. And we've seen this with many of our customers. This isn't our only merchant who quotes that they've tried multiple Beam apps and loved the experience. That allows us to grow our business model. That allows us to grow our suite significantly faster. Our second competitive advantage is the economics of our business model. Let's take an average customer that does 1,000 orders per month on their store. The competitor will charge $100 a month for their app. We can charge $50 a month since we're betting that they'll use another Beam app. This allows us to have a higher customer acquisition cost while offering a lower price to the customer. Finally, Our third competitive advantage is our memorable brand. We have deep personal relationships with some of the top influencers in the e-commerce space, which allows us to market and promote our apps on a platform that fewer players have access to. Alongside this, we've also invested into creative brand assets that people can easily identify and associate with Beam apps. And we see the impact of both influencers and our brand assets on our customers. In fact, many of our customers use after-selling as a verb to replace post-purchase upselling. And this trickles down to how many of our installs actually come directly from people searching for after-sell. This model is very difficult to replicate because creating apps that seamlessly share data take a lot of time to build and a lot of data to be effective. And the partnerships we have with influencers are from our own time creating our own e-commerce stores, which are, again, very difficult to replicate.
At Beam, we are fundamentally a customer-centric company. At a high level, we have 3 core customer segments: dropshippers, small to medium-sized businesses, and large-scale direct-to-consumer brands. The first segment we started to learn from are these, dropshippers. These are commonly new entrepreneurs who do not hold inventory. We decided to start with this segment as we had experience ourselves running our own dropshipping stores. As we began to learn about this segment, we were able to effectively address their pain points and gain traction within the segment. As after-sell grew, we noticed that small to medium-sized businesses were also using our apps. So we asked them, what can we do to help your business grow? Their responses gave us a North Star and allowed us to start building new features for after-sell, as well as creating new apps, which led to the creation of the Beam Commerce Suite. The final segment we've been able to learn from are large-scale direct-to-consumer brands. For instance, one company that uses after-sell is an e-commerce store called Feastables, a chocolate company owned by the famous YouTuber Mr. Beast. And these large-scale direct-to-consumer brands are typically looking for more extensive technologies and advanced revenue generation opportunities. At Beam, we have 5 main channels that fuel our growth, and those are the Shopify App Store, e-commerce influencers, social ad channels, tech integrations, as well as cold outreach. We started off by distributing our apps through the Shopify App Store. We chose Shopify as it's one of the fastest growing e-commerce platforms, with 87% of the merchants using Shopify stating that they rely on apps to run their business, and on average having 6 apps installed per store. We decided to start with a singular platform in order to keep our app development costs as low as possible. However, as we prove out the model and gain more traction, we're looking to expand onto new platforms and eventually create standalone platform-free versions of our apps. We've been able to refine our App Store growth strategy in order to maximize positive reviews and improve our ranking on the App Store. And this has been shown with each subsequent app launch. For instance, our first app launch, Aftersell, it took 16 weeks to reach our first 300 users. Our next app, Outsell, did it in just 8 weeks, and our most recent app launch, Trackaroo, has been able to reach its first 300 users in just 3 weeks. The next growth channel which we've been using is partnering with different e-commerce influencers. And these are typically educators in the space that create content on different social platforms, teaching others how to start an e-commerce business. And we've been lucky enough to build these relationships with these individuals through our past businesses. And by partnering with these respected and well-known individuals, it not only helps us acquire customers, but it also helps elevate our brand too. Next, we've made use of various different social ad channels to scale our business. For instance, ads on Facebook and Reddit. And through these channels, we're looking to mainly acquire higher value, larger stores. Also, we're working to build out different tech integrations with different app partners in the space. By building out these integrations, we're able to acquire larger brands, and it provides more utility and value to our apps. And finally, we're also using the traditional sales cold outreach model to acquire customers. We're sending out approximately 1,000 emails per month, and with an appointment booking rate of 3% and a call closing rate of 50%, we're acquiring approximately 15 large brands per month. One of the core risks we face at Beam is our dependence on the Shopify App Store. And although Shopify is consistently building out new tooling and is really nurturing this app developer relationship, we understand that there is some inherent risk on depending on a singular platform. And that's why we plan to expand onto new platforms later this year. The first platform we're looking to expand onto is called Magento, a platform owned by Adobe. And the reason we've decided to expand onto this platform is due to the high percentage of larger brands on this platform. Our go-to-market strategy for Magento is to start by building out a customer waitlist. We've had many Magento users reach out to us asking for us to expand onto the platform, with many even offering to pay. So we plan to build out a customer waitlist of approximately 100 stores. and at an average revenue per user of $100, we expect to launch onto this platform with $10,000 in monthly recurring revenue. In the short term, in terms of like growth on Magento, we plan to start by making use of the different knowledge we got from the Shopify App Store in terms of review generation and App Store optimization, and also apply that to Magento. And in terms of the scaling up and late stage growth for this platform, we plan to make use of the familiar growth strategies which I discussed earlier. And as we prove out Magento similar to how we have with Shopify, we plan to continue expanding onto a greater number of platforms based on what will yield our business the highest ROI. Across our apps, we're on track to hit $50,000 in monthly recurring revenue in the next month, and we have an average revenue per paying user of $50. In the short term, we plan to make all of our free apps paid. In the medium term, we plan to move away from our current contracting model towards hiring in-house in order to better retain our talent. And in the long term, we're looking to expand onto more platforms. Before Beam, our team has already built a $2 million e-commerce store, a YouTube channel business with over 75 million views, and sold our first SaaS company. And we have advisors who are past SaaS founders, have e-commerce businesses doing $200 million in annual revenue with over 5 million customers. Because of this, we believe that we have the domain knowledge, team, and advisors in place to execute on our mission. And we're just at the tip of the iceberg. The $20,000 prize from this competition will be extremely valuable to us in allowing us to take our 4 free apps paid. It will allow us to build out billing systems for these other 4 apps, as well as a bundled billing model across all our apps to help with our sales effort in terms of marketing and selling the entire Beam Commerce Suite. So to summarize, at Beam, we're boosting sales for e-commerce stores. We do this through a suite of apps that help with a variety of things, including upselling, store design, order tracking, and more. We're on track to hit $50,000 in monthly recurring revenue next month, fully bootstrapped. We've generated our customers over $35 million in revenue, and we currently have over 7,000 active businesses using our apps. And this really works. They're reporting a boost in revenue of up to 30%. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our pitch. We'd love to open the floor to any questions.
Great, good job, guys.
Thank you.
I did have a question about the competitive landscape.
Yeah.
Your pricing model seems like it's cheaper to compete. Is that right? Give me an idea of what they're charging on their prices and how you're able to break in. And maybe go back to that slide.
Yeah, if you just want to come back to the pricing slide. Yeah, so it depends on the competitors. So some of the top competitors, they tend to charge more for like the smaller stores. And so that's where we sort of came in and we started acquiring a lot more of the smaller stores. Like Ramon mentioned, we have dropshippers, SMBs, and large-scale D2C brands. So the price-sensitive stores, they'll charge, let's say, for a 1,000 order a month store, they'll charge like $100. We can charge 50, and then we can just upsell them another app or cross-sell them another app. And that's one of the ways we're able to grow every subsequent app faster and faster.
And are they not also doing a free model to gain users?
Some of them are.
Trying to get a better idea of the
Yeah,
competitive landscape.
for sure. Like they have a free model. Well, okay, so they have like free trials. Shopify doesn't even have a free plan. They have like the constraints on their usage. So like, for example, we have like 50 orders a month. They might have like 20 or 10 or something free orders. So like generally it's like a lot more sort of sliced down compared to what we do. And the reason we're able to price cheaper on the lower end is because we're just able to acquire the higher end customers and charge them more, as well as just, again, cross-sell into our other apps. Like that's the whole play. Like if you're using another, like order tracking is one of those things that's very fundamental to an e-commerce store. So if you're using our post-purchase upsell app, it integrates really well into our order tracking app, which again is part of the overall post-purchase experience. And so you're going to use ours at some point. And so we can end up projecting like a very high LTV for each of these customers.
So I get how you're going to use the 20,000, but you've already got almost a $750,000 business. Don't you think there should be a zero on that ask?
Yeah. So you mean like raising a round, right? So there's a few things. One is for us to raise a round, we want to get to all of our apps paid. Like we've invested a lot of our capital to get to where we are now, which is free apps with users that are now getting to product market fit. The idea is that we want to take our apps paid before we raise a round, yield a higher valuation, and then obviously we want to look for like investors that would come on and help us with like very specific domain knowledge and the parts that we struggle with.
Yeah, and for that aspect, we have like advisors. I think there's like a slide about them. Basically, like they have a lot of customers. Like they have like a network of 200 stores. They're really big in the e-commerce space, so that helps us with like, the path to like raising money.
Yeah.
And then you said, so personally you guys invested. How much have you guys personally invested?
Yeah, so the initial like investment cost to kind of get like the business up and running, I think was around like $7,000 just to build out the MVP. And then from there, we occasionally just like floated a bit of cash to cover cash flow here and there and pay ourselves back. But yeah, the initial investment was around 7,000.
I mean, it's pretty low. Generating 55,000 a month is pretty good. Yeah, that's impressive.
Did I see a revenue sharing component in the written materials, or is it strictly this straight line orders-based pricing scale?
It's just orders-based pricing scale. The idea is to try and model a revenue share. And this is very specific to Shopify. Like, we'll definitely revisit this pricing model when we get onto Magento. And the reason is because like a lot of stores on Shopify, they sort of frown upon revenue share agreements because then it's like a percentage what they have to consider in like their margins, as opposed to a flat pricing model that is able to model out some percentage of revenue share based on the customer segment we're targeting.
Do you feel as though that captures your value more completely this way, or the other way if you could go revenue share?
The ideal would be revenue share, but like we're trying to like model it. Like we've changed this pricing model like a lot of times to try and model it more and more accurately.
Question. You said you had 3 apps?
Yeah.
Okay, and then in the short term, you're looking to convert those free apps into paid apps?
Yeah.
So do you imagine you might lose some customers once they go paid? And what percentage, over time will you have that kind of attrition?
Yeah. Yeah, so, the plan to go paid, and we definitely will. I'm not saying we're going to have like 100% retention on turning them paid. The ones we would lose wouldn't pay anyway. So like that's one of the reasons we're going to go paid. The second is we're taking a very slow approach to going paid. So we're going to release something called an early supporter plan first, which is still, again, way cheaper than our competitors. And then that'll give us an idea of what the willingness to pay is. Then we'll turn it into a full paid plan. So we'll start with like the higher end customers of like the people that don't care how much they're paying, all the way down to like the people that do care how much they're paying. And then we're going to target an exact pricing model for them. So like realistically, if it's an app that runs your store, we're going to see a lot less churn. Like if it's like a Trackaroo, which is an order tracking app, it's too deeply integrated into your store for you to switch. If you do switch to a competitor's, they're paid anyway. So, and we're a better app and we're integrated with our other apps. So like we've kind of made it very difficult for you to get out of. Like we've done this thing where we've offered our apps for free, but you're very well integrated into our suite that leaving is kind of difficult for certain apps. So like you can go and start like use another quiz app because like it's like a pre-purchase sort of quiz funnel. But using another order tracking app or using another store designer is very difficult.
And do those customers know upfront before they kind of get into that commitment of getting deeply integrated that down the line there will be a paid situation?
Yeah, it's like they're like free for a limited time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you remind me each of your roles in the company, please?
Yeah, for sure. So we have 5 co-founders. I run like
5 co-founders?
Yeah. So if you go to our team side,
just wanted to remind me of that.
So yeah, these are us. This is us. I run sort of like sales and hiring-ish. So like mostly sales. I deal with like our enterprise customers.
Yeah, I focus mostly on product and a little bit of finance.
I focus mainly on like the marketing growth side of things.
And then Landon is our tech sort of lead. So he heads up all of our tech and engineering team. And then Shubham, he sort of leads our customer support processes.
What do you think about your long-term technical advantage? I get the algorithms proprietary. A lot of other smart people out there. At what point does this start to scale and get so much data in it that your merchants, if you go to your clients, just can't think about going somewhere else? How do you think about that technical advantage?
Yeah, so there's 2 things. I think it's the amount of data, but also the type of data. So to actually get the data we're getting, you have to be integrated into their store, which is difficult. Like actually getting into like if you think about the places we're actually integrated in, it's like after a purchase. It's not even on their site. It's like on their checkout and after they're in their email sequences. And so the places which we're able to insert ourselves is, again, very difficult. So we cut out a lot of people that would try and replicate this. From there, I think where we actually build like the highest competitive advantage is when we go multi-platform, multi-app, and then APIs and SDKs, where we're able to be very, very wide, rather than being only on Shopify with like a very specific customer segment. And so the way we're building our defensibility, along with like obviously the algorithms and data and the influencers, is actually to go and acquire customers at these very critical points in the purchase journey, and then on multiple platforms.
So I didn't see much on kind of at least as far as like a pro forma on scaling onto multiple platforms, possibly even doing like a standalone. So use any website. What does that look like? I mean, I assume that ramp is pretty steep.
Yeah, so like we haven't like fully projected it out, if I'm being fully honest, and that's because like we want to see the like platforms. Like we're very confident we can get a customer wait list of like $100 ARPU and 100 customers, but like other than that, we haven't fully projected it out. Like if the growth follows a similar trajectory to Shopify, it would be very high. But I just don't see that being the case, if I'm being completely honest. Like Magento is not going to have the volume of customers that Shopify has. But if you look at the revenue, it's going to be similar because they have higher value customers. And then every subsequent platform, we haven't even decided what the third platform is going to be, because after we do Shopify and after we do Magento, we would know exactly what kind of customers we're missing to take the third platform on, and the fourth and the fifth.
And can you not is the tech not available to build it platform agnostic, so it can be standalone, be plugged into anything?
Yeah, so
or is that just not the
like we'll build an SDK that'll allow like it to be somewhat platform agnostic, but like there's advantages with integrating within the platform as well, right? Like customers would want us to like recognize, like like for example for Shopify, like they want to be able to like say like I have these products, like target these products for these customers, right? Like similarly for other platforms, we think that'll be like a strong advantage that we can do. Versus like if you're platform agnostic, it's hard to do that.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
They also just like the platform itself pushes us out. It's like a marketing and distribution channel, right? Where Shopify will push us out on their store, and then we get a lot of customers, and that's how we're able to do a lot of growth.
Anything else? I do like your funding plan though, non-dilutive, business plan competitions. That's one way to do it. And then you also had some debt financing, it looked like, so also non-dilutive, which is great with 5 co-founders. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
And the reference to Mr. Beast. That's
Thank you.
All done?
Thank you.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Erin Harville,
I'm Nolan Dean.
and we're the co-founders of Power Player. To get an understanding of our product, we first need to take you back in time. So it's June 30th, 2021. While most university students are enjoying their summer breaks, Alyssa has been on campus training and taking classes with her teammates. She wakes up, her day starts about 5:30 and it ends around 6 p.m. After leaving time for homework and dinner, goes to sleep at 9:30. What she wakes up to is college athletics has changed as she knows it. Thanks to an NCAA policy, student athletes are now able to profit off their name, image, and likeness, or NIL. Influencer marketing is already a $16.5 billion industry, and with NIL in the fold, we expect that number to skyrocket. With NIL, the athlete endorsement pool expanded from 5,000 to 500,000, and basically turned college athletics into the wild, wild west. News headlines showed multi-million-dollar deals being signed, but the primary beneficiaries were men. From revenue-driven sports, have extensive media coverage and over 100,000 followers on their social media. They get deals with ease, while female athletes like Alyssa have to search and secure deals on their own.
So we conducted quite a few interviews with female athletes and identified 6 major challenges for these athletes. First of all, they have limited availability and time to go out and search for these deals on their own, so they rely on a platform to kind of facilitate these deals for them. When they get on these platforms, it's very cookie cutter. Their profiles look the same as everybody else on the platform, and it's hard to differentiate themselves with another athlete. On top of that, they're dealing with a lack of visibility for women's sports. They are going up against, in these platforms, against football players, basketball players with higher social media followings. Brands have been relying on these social media following metrics for a long time. We found that, or we've been talking to brands, we found that the engagement rate is actually what they're looking for. But these platforms actually highlight the follower count of these athletes. And so brands are making deals based on these follower counts, but not seeing the actual value behind the deals. They also are fragmented all over the internet. So you have to go find them from social media sites, other platforms, and brands are left to piece together the full picture of the athlete by finding these other sites. Finally, there's opportunity misalignment. A lot of the opportunities being posted to them, these deals, are very generic. They're kind of a blanket deals for any athlete to sign up for. Female athletes really want to have their interests, their passions, and their values come across in these deals, and they want to have deals that align more with what they're looking for. So essentially what we are looking at here is in the top corner, or in the top left corner, is an example of a platform. Very cookie cutter, all of the profiles look the same. You can't really tell what an athlete mean, or what they care about, what their values are. Highlighted in green are the 5 female athletes on this platform. Everybody else on this platform is a male athlete. They are left to kind of be parsed in with all these other male athletes, and they don't have the visibility necessary to kind of stand out in this platform. On the right here is a very popular brand and marketing tool, which they essentially can search and use this tool to kind of find more engagement and social media metrics. When we used this ourselves, we found that you can't just come up with a list of athletes by searching NIL or college athlete or female athlete. You have to actually go in and search the athlete by name. And so it doesn't allow for a good packaging of the athlete or the deals and the values that come across as well. So the missing link in this is a space for athletes to be able to personally talk about themselves with customizable designs and a little more ability to try to talk about their mission, their values, their interests, and their passions outside of the field. We are Power Player, a web building platform for female athletes that puts the power of storytelling in their hands and allows them to assist them with their NIL management. Our platform is designed to essentially be the square space for female athletes to manage their personal brand identities. The solution that we propose is a one-stop shop that houses all of their interests, passions, and future hopes for after their playing career. We also hope to facilitate authentic connections, as we talked about, by showcasing the athlete beyond just their basic level of playing career. Our platform will be personalizable and individualized. As you saw the other platforms currently, you can't really stand out and have a personality to your platform, to your profile as well. We hope to make our platform quick and easy to use, facilitating deals quickly through the platform. We also are looking for ways to value the athlete outside of the social media account. We are working with a group, our students at the University of Oregon to research brands and find out other ways to value an athlete outside of just their social media follower account. Finally, we hope to kind of gather a collection of brands that genuinely support our cause and support the women in sport cause that we're looking to kind of to emphasize. So we have 4 key differentiators based on our competitors. First of all, we are the only female-focused platform. Female athletes make up 40% of college athletes, but only 10% of the media coverage. And so we want to kind of highlight them and amplify their voices in a more authentic way. We also allow them to control their narrative with a little more customizable web page and a personalizable platform as well. Finally, a qualitative valuation that goes beyond that social media metric that we talked about. We hope to have this tool built out for the brands in the future as well.
So if you navigate to powerplayer.com, this would be our homepage. You'll see the player spotlight, the ability to search all of the players that we have, and then filter based off of specific characteristics. The ability to learn more, join our platform. If you want to join our platform, you'd click Join Now to decide whether you're a player or a power, the athlete or the brand, and then you begin your onboarding process. The onboarding process is an AI chatbot feature, which is easy to use and relates really well with the athlete's conversational. It's something that they should just go through, and that auto-populates the questions. After that's completed, they're able to select their templates. So with a variety of clean, modern, and customizable templates, our players can just choose the look and feel of their digital home. So recognizing most athletes don't use a site like LinkedIn, this is an opportunity to be able to highlight experiences, leaderships, and skills and show their digital resume, portfolio, things that will transfer from their sport to a job. Athletes don't have a lot of time as it is. They can't do internships and play their sport, but the reality is only 2% of college athletes go on to play professionally, so they rely really heavily on their academics. This is a basis for them to be able to use, able to leverage their time in the spotlight for NIL to be able to propel themselves forward in their particular careers. So we provide a URL, powerplayer.com/Madeline Lafollette. This is her page. She used the customization tools to be able to create this, add and remove options in her completed page. So Madeline is a student athlete. She transferred from the University of San Francisco to the University of Oregon, and she is a 5th-year student. She's pursuing an MBA, so you'll see the things that she prioritizes is her personal story, her stats, and her resume because she's looking for career opportunities. You'll also see that she is pretty adventurous. She's from the Bay Area, but exploring the Pacific Northwest. That's a call to action for any outdoor brands to really talk to Madeline. She also sees that she proclaims that the way to her heart is a cup of coffee, so that's a call to action for beverage companies as well to be able to talk to her. That creates synergy and more alignment with the deals as opposed to just throwing a blanket deal out for her to choose from. She'll be more committed to the deal this way. Next, we offer brands a different way to look at the athletes. So the value for a brand actually comes from engagement and not social media following. And female athletes have a higher engagement rate than their male counterparts. So we want to be able to use that. So we use this feature along with different other attributes to be able to provide a power score. Leadership, activism, things like that to provide a power score. We're able to show what their main focuses are, and then that is where the brands would come in. We're able to use that information from the onboarding process to be able to give brands recommendations for specific athletes based off of the data that we collected.
So since our last pitch, we've worked with a financial consultant from Morgan Stanley that's basically allowed us to build out a financial model and the different revenue streams for this platform. There's a lot to look at on this page, but essentially, to break it down, there's one revenue stream from the athlete, which will be a subscription. There'll be an onboarding fee to build that website initially, and then they'll have 3 months free on the platform as they get used to the dynamics of it. The main driver of revenue and driver for revenue for us is going to be through the brands. And there's 2 ways that can happen. The brand can subscribe to the platform for a subscription fee that's very similar to other platforms in this space. And with this subscription, they'll have access to that qualitative tool that Aaron had just mentioned. They'll have the ability to make their own web page and essentially tie their brand to the idea of supporting female athletes. and they'll also have lower transaction fees when they do have these deals with athletes. Now, if they don't want to subscribe, they'll still have the initial onboarding fee from that brand. They won't have access to the qualitative measuring tool, and they'll have a higher percentage or higher transaction fee than a subscribing brand. If you look at these transaction fees, they are actually lower than the competitors on the market because we see the value is to the athlete as well. And so as the deals go up, we incentivize these larger deals because we take less out of their pocket and it goes more to the athlete. And so we are trying to incentivize these large deals for our athletes on our platform, unlike the competitors who kind of have blanket transaction fees across their platform. Now, using this new financial model, we calculated based on about 50 deals per day and 1,000 athletes, right? So once we grow our user base to 1,000 athletes, using our financial model, we found that we'll have an average annual revenue per user of about $2,200. If we extrapolate that to the entire market of female student athletes, which is 218,000 student athletes, that gives us a total attainable market of $488 million. Now, looking ahead to our funding, essentially what we're doing here is three different avenues to raise capital. We are entering in venture competitions such as this one and a couple others down the road. We're using crowdfunding apps and platforms such as GoFundMe and iFundWomen that supports women-owned businesses. And we're also looking eventually to have equity funding from an investor that aligns with our personal mission and values for a share in the company as well. So looking ahead at the development phases of where we're at right now. We're currently in phase one. We're looking to raise capital to develop our website. That's kind of the next step in this process. We're also looking to establish a board of advisors that kind of, again, share our mission and values and can amplify our startup and our message to their network as well. After launch in the year one, we're going to look to secure partnerships with brands that support women's sports and tie our brand with other major brands that have the same values and mission that we talked about. In this first year, we're hoping to market on campuses along the West Coast. We'll go into actual on campus. We'll work with athletes and build out their profiles. We're hoping to grow our user base to 1,000 athletes, as I had mentioned before. That'll give us about $1.9 million expected annual revenue according to our model. In year two, that's when we really try to ramp up our growth. We're going to do a lot of on-campus marketing throughout the nation, and then also go to these national events, national sporting and kind of championship events to raise our awareness of our brand. We hope to grow our market share to about 3% of that 218,000 female athletes, which will give us about 7,000 athletes. According to our model, that'll result in about $4 million in expected annual revenue. So we are the founders of Power Player. Myself, Nolan Dean, and Aaron Harville here are second-year MBA students at the University of Oregon, a top 3 sports business program in the country. We have over 11 years experience combined together. Personally, I have worked as a consultant for various sports teams and leagues. Aaron has worked as a creative strategy manager for various universities and athletic departments. We also have been fortunate enough to have a variety of mentors and coaches. Highlighted in yellow are the male mentors, and highlighted in blue are our female mentors. These mentors range from a wide variety of backgrounds, such as Pac-12, Wasserman, Deloitte, various universities, and they range from being high level to kind of professors as well at the universities. We've been able to work with these folks to kind of really hone in our mission and our idea, and again build out our financial model. As well as we found that we are looking for advisors who again share our mission for female athletes, women's sports, and we're looking to build that advisory board past what we have here as well. Off the court, off the turf, off the track. We are the home of power players in sport. Thank you.
Okay. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So I'm curious on you're raising money right now. What do you anticipate? I didn't see it in the plan. I'm sorry if I missed it. But what are the startup costs to develop the platform?
Yeah.
And who's going to do it? And if I missed it again, I apologize. But
No,
I'd like to
absolutely.
Get more clarity on that.
Yeah. So essentially what we're looking for is around $50,000 to $90,000 to develop the website. We've looked at the pricing in terms of what like typical web developers that are in our space kind of charge, and it's around that price range. So that's kind of our next step there is raising that capital to partner with the developer. We also have the potential to work with a developer on campus at University of Oregon. So we have some students that also have that capability. So they have also offered their services for a much cheaper rate, obviously, but we are looking for an actual partner, an agency to partner with to develop this website and continue the maintenance on it as well.
So it's going to take you 90,000 on the top end to get your first user in.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
So, what if one of your athletes that you have on the platform goes pro? Do you guys get a take of that deal if they get drafted in the WNBA?
At this point, no, we wouldn't.
Why?
There's no deal there to get a take of. I think that would just grow. Like they'll have deals from that notoriety,
Yeah.
which will get thrown into our platform and kind of driven through our platform. They'll still have this website when they go pro or when they go into their career. When they go pro, they get a signing bonus. I mean, they get the contract, but we can't just say, hey, we're going to take part of that contract as well because we're not acting as an agent for them. At that
Yes.
point, sorry, go ahead.
So when they transition into that professional phase, that's when they'll be able to use agents and things like this. This is that assistant to be able to help female athletes right now that don't have the access to agents and things like that. So we're taking those percentages of deals from people while they're on the platform. Once they transition into that professional stage, they can keep their profiles and their website to be able to continue to build it and update it, but we would no longer take transaction fees from them.
I mean, I think it's something to think about. I mean,
Yeah.
do you have agents that are coming on board that can actually be part of the brand so they can start to kind of see who some of the up-and-comings are? Because if you guys are creating that platform, why not monetize it?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And that's where the big dollars come.
Yeah, and we are actually having a conversation with a Wasserman agent up here in the next couple of weeks who represents female athletes, and so I think there is that piece. I think we haven't quite figured out how to ramp it up into the professional space yet,
Yeah.
and we want to focus on college athletes currently, but I think the ability to scale this is immense, so yeah, absolutely.
Feels good to be launching something in this space, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a
Congratulations
passion
on
for
that.
us, yeah.
Thank
yeah.
you.
I'm curious about the business model and validating it, right? Somebody on the team often steps forward, now that you've done this great work with Morgan Stanley, to go out and validate it, both on the individual player side, what are their expectations for the subscription, and then on the brand side?
Right.
Who's responsible for that? And does it have
Yeah, I think, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, so with the subscription model, it's just like another subscription that athletes are already paying. On other platforms right now, like there's that blanket transaction fee, which is 30%. If an athlete has an agent, they're getting anywhere from 20 to 30%. We're lower than that. So that's going to be the incentivization for people to come and use our platform because it'll be a lower transaction fee than anything else that's currently happening. And then we'll be able to, we've been able to look at that to be able to say, this is what brands are using right now, but they're not being able to get all of the features. We offer more of that.
Yeah, and to your point too, we also have had conversations with quite a few athletes, and so we have both done interviews with athletes and kind of teased out the subscription model. They really don't like the transaction fees being charged by these current competitors in the space, and so they were more willing to pay some kind of subscription fee than having to pay a transaction fee that scales up as they get bigger deals, because they see themselves growing their deal sizes eventually, and they don't want to have to give 30% of a $10,000 deal, essentially.
So forgive me, because I'm just going to double click on this.
Yeah.
You were talking about this agent notion a little bit earlier as well. And it seems to me that a moment ago you said, we don't compete with agents, we won't take a piece.
Right.
But I think I just heard in this answer that you do have to compete with them price-wise. I'm missing something, I'm sure.
What I think she was trying to say there is that in terms of these college athletes, they don't have an agent, and so if they were to have an agent, they'd be paying a higher transaction fee if the agent would take a higher transaction, a higher percentage of that transaction. With us, we have a lower fee than an actual agent because we're not serving that day-to-day agent as for the athlete. We're not the person on the phone that they can call. So I think we're trying to justify that by saying essentially we're not charging an agent's fee because we're not going to be an agent for you. The agents can work with us, and they definitely will eventually, want to build out these profiles for the athletes because it sets them apart from the other athletes that are in that same space. So I don't see us competing with agents at all. I think that we would be a nice complement for their athletes, honestly.
So you have the athletes as a revenue stream model, and then you have the brands.
Yeah.
So maybe the agents could be a third revenue stream because they're coming to you to access, very much like a LinkedIn. I see it like a LinkedIn, but, a specialized LinkedIn. That's kind of what I'm getting from this.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
those recruiters, like from LinkedIn, would be the same as your agents. So those recruiters, they pay an extra fee to access everyone's profiles.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We
I
haven't
think-
explored that option
Yeah,
yet.
but I think that's a great idea, honestly, throwing that other revenue stream. And there also is the ability to
And
go to universities as well, and so we can scale with universities, have them do a whole, female for all of their
On a
female
whole team
athletes.
basis.
Yeah,
Instead of
exactly.
one
Exactly.
individual
Right.
by individual,
Right.
one team at a time,
Yep.
you know?
Yep, exactly. I think that's kind of where we're hoping with these campus visits to start growing that ability as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to that point, it would make sense as a student athlete to have, have something with the agent ability.
Yeah.
And one agent could have, 15 or, 20 athletes, but be working as their advocate and ambassador to that. I would think that'd be a big lure, because that's what everybody wants. Is
Yeah.
They can't afford the single agent, nor are they gonna be that good. But on a grouping standpoint, when they can actually be out there and this person, there's a coffee deal that's out there, going into the site with you guys, working with your athletes that are on it, and then putting something like that together, I think could be a really big idea,
Yeah.
and that next step to the professional side of things, so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The good thing is, like, we're stepping into this space right as it's taking off. It's currently, there's no streamlined way of doing anything. There are people that had platforms for professional athletes and then adapted the space. We're creating a space that will focus on the female athlete and actually caters to the different NIL deals and different components. Kind of as they're moving along, we're going to be able to build our and adapt our platform as we build it, as opposed to something that's structured and trying to fit people in. And I think that's kind of where our female athletes are getting lost.
So I see that there's a clear opportunity here from the student athlete's perspective. If they're not getting noticed, they're incentivized and they'll pay for this system. So I like that that's part of your business model. I'm a little fuzzy on the competitive advantage on the other side of the equation, though.
Yeah.
And really what it is that is a differentiator for them. What do they continually get value for their subscription fee? Because after a few months, if they don't get anyone really looking at them, they're just going to drop.
For the
And
athlete.
so,
Sorry,
for the
yeah,
athlete,
gotcha,
yeah.
gotcha,
So,
gotcha.
but I do I think that is where the demand and where the higher value revenue might come from. But I want to get a better sense of the competitive differentiation here. And I know you haven't built the platform yet, but
Right.
how are you really going to engage and show the more personalized side versus these other platforms? And
Yeah,
what does that look like?
I think that really comes from what we're offering, which is what no one's doing right now, is a qualitative valuation tool. Right now, there's valuation tools which are based off of social media metrics that are able to say, like, I am worth this amount of money. So a female athlete, they look at their social media and they're like, I'm not worth any money. And we're like, yes, you are. And we're taking different characteristics and different aspects to be able to give that to the brand. So that collection of our female athletes, as well as this valuation tool, that's our really, like, our competitive advantage and our key differentiator, because we're essentially trying to teach the market a different way to look at the athlete, so these deals are longer. A lot of one-off deals, a lot of like unaligned deals. We spoke to a couple of athletes that talked about, yeah, someone just sent us a link and my whole team signed up for it. 2 of us use it. We use it sometimes, but they get product in return. They don't really get what they want. So being able to use those different characteristics, we're able to match and create that alignment. Our goal is to create mutually beneficial deals that will outlive their collegiate athletic career. And that's kind of where we stand out.
And also to the point of it kind of being a LinkedIn light, essentially, or a different version of LinkedIn, these athletes, when they're not having this traction with these brands and they're not seeing the brand deals come and they feel like they have to drop off the platform, there'll be an education piece. So a huge part of NIL is educating you on how to handle your brand, how to market yourself. And so we'll have an educational feature on the platform where you can build your skills in those areas that you might be a little weak on. So that qualitative tool that shows that spider chart, say you're weak on public speaking, we'll have some public speaking videos on there where you can go through the course and build up that skill as well.
And that's accessed as you move up that subscription model. So there's that basic model, that standard model, and the premium model. That's where those additional aspects come from. Like, we're starting with that basic. As they're using it, like, it's really a commitment and investment to yourself. You decide where you want to go and how you want to kind of build your brand. And so if you're having those issues and want to differentiate yourself and do more, then you're just move up the subscription
And I
model.
think also, as we're building this out, we obviously want to keep these users engaged. And so I think we'll have to bootstrap it a little bit. We might have to go and do a personal brand consulting Zoom with you for 30 minutes to get that, as you get the first 50 or 100 athletes on the platform, and keep them engaged. And so we definitely have a couple different levers we can pull there to at least build them up when they don't have that baseline knowledge when they enter into the college space.
So earlier you said once an athlete goes pro, it's kind of like, oh, they can keep their profile on there and everything, but do you have any plans for kind of circling back and showing those success stories and, will you be able to kind of use that as a marketing tool to show, hey, this person was on our platform, now they went pro, and kind of really profile that on your site and, leverage that somehow?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the success stories is a huge thing in NIL right now, and I think being able to show that on your platform and prove that it's a working model and it can work is a huge thing. And so we actually want that to live currently on their profile as well, and then we can obviously pull that into a homepage for us as well. But we want the athlete to be able to say, here are case studies that I've done that I'm successful in, and this is the skills I got from this. So even if they don't go professional and they want to go and make a career in marketing, they can show, hey, I've done these deals with these brands and I have like proven track record. And we can then pull those case studies into our main homepage and show, hey, here's an athlete who didn't go pro but went into a marketing managing position because of their deals they had. Here's an athlete who went pro because of the different deals they had, and then this is how they leverage that as they go pro. So
yeah, essentially an internal like influencer marketing kind of system for ourselves
Right.
once we kind of get these through. But because this is so new, we haven't gotten through like a freshman to a senior type using these deals yet. A lot of athletes are like, say, a fifth year now getting deals or a sophomore now getting deals. So we'll kind of have to use that. I think after year 4, after we're able to kind of see that, is kind of where we can start that circulation.
No, I think going to the 2% comment of actually making it pro, I see this kind of could be like a hybrid, almost like an Indeed.com or something. So, I mean, because I did a lot of recruiting back on campuses, and I was hired off of University of Oregon with a Gallo. But one of the key traits we look for is student athletes. I mean, that was always kind of at the top for obvious reasons.
Right.
So I almost could think that there'd be a way that you guys could monetize it with some of the core, the key corporate
Yeah.
companies, and they could pay to play to have access, exclusive access. Because I would go down on campus and I would meet with professors, I'd meet with coaches, and like, who's the best of the best,
Right.
And then I would reach out for those students directly.
Interesting.
So this kind of would cut that step off,
Right.
Yeah.
and it'd be hugely valuable because that was an expensive endeavor for the company.
Right, okay.
So I would think that would be massive
Yeah.
opportunity.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's our
absolutely.
goal for sure, to streamline this process. There's
Yeah.
no streamlined
Yeah.
process. We want to streamline that process.
Sales and marketing organizations look for
100%.
athletes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I think it'd be huge, and they'd be happy to cut that check.
Yeah, and I mean, athletes like we said, they don't go on LinkedIn, they don't have that place to like talk about it. So having at least a place where they can feel like it's personalizable, customizable, a little more genuine to them too would be a huge asset.
And then
for
you're
them.
able to plug your URL wherever you want. Like that's a link in bio solution, as opposed to a link in bio that takes you to a different page. You just plug your Power Player page in right there.
Can you talk more about the team skill sets and so forth that are present and that you plan to add?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
go ahead, you first.
Sorry, yeah. So I come from a creative background, strategic communications, creative advertising. I've worked within athletic departments, University of Kentucky, University of Oregon. I'm a freelance contract with Influencer, which is a current NIL platform. I did that last summer, and then I'm contracted now freelance with Wasserman, which is an agent for female athletes. So that's my skill set.
Yeah, and I've consulted with Elevate Sports Ventures, so we basically work on consulting for sports teams, leagues, venues, things like that. Currently, I've worked with Portland Timbers on their NIL strategy, essentially, and kind of building out what they do with athletes. I'm also working on a consulting project with the U.S. Olympic Committee with their NIL platform and kind of how they're going to leverage that with all of their athletes as well. So I've been able to kind of plug in, and I'm also actually working with the Oregon Accelerator, which is on the University of Oregon. It's basically a student-ran group where we consult student athletes as well. And so a lot of the research I've gotten from those other areas has allowed me to kind of funnel that into this research as well. So it's definitely been a good benefit this past year to kind of get all the experiences on the University of Oregon campus for sure.
Development, talent, extended, other part-time people besides yourselves at all?
Yeah, I think that's kind of our what we're looking for, is to expand our founding team for that exact reason. We recently found this financial consultant who has expressed interest in coming on board if this does ramp up to a certain extent, and she's amazing. She's built this whole financial model for us because she's got Morgan Stanley background, obviously. But yeah, I think the development side is where we want to go next, and I think we need to find the right partner there as well.
Good. 1 minute. Oh, we got 1 more minute.
1 minute. Any last ones?
Good timing.
Question from the audience.
How soon, at what age can an athlete enter
It depends on the state. So right now, unfortunately, there is no national law on NIL. NCAA has put that onto Congress's plate. Congress has a lot of other stuff on their plate currently, so they haven't made a sweeping deal. So some states, it can be as high school. As soon as you get into high school, you can jump on a platform like this and start monetizing yourself. That's talk to the Texases and the Ohio's. Here in Oregon, I believe it's also still high school age. Some states like California they restrict you until you're 18. A lot of people could get on here, at least starting when they're senior year in high school and they're ramping up to their freshman year. They could get onto a platform like this and start building that out. Yeah.
And then who's the biggest competitor in the space right now?
It's interesting to talk about that because we see like there is the main marketplace in NIL is Open Doors. They're the main competitor, I would say, but we aren't really. Oh, all right.
Got the buzzer.
Yeah, there we go. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Sorry. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So good morning, judges. My name is Kai Scalarud. I'm a dual degree medical and business student. I actually just finished my MBA program this week, which I'm very excited about, and I have 1 year left in my medical training.
And I'm Isla. I'm Speak It COO, and I finished my first year of the MBA program I'm finishing it this May, and I'm specializing in finance and marketing.
So we're hoping to keep this session as conversational as possible. And so to your point about interrupting, actually we're going to encourage that. So we've made 2 breaks at midpoints in our presentation where we're going to pause intentionally, invite your questions, and then move on with the rest of the presentation. And we plan this to have plenty of time for full Q&A at the end.
Does that sound okay?
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So we're here because healthcare providers would love to spend every minute of their workday focusing on their patients, but unfortunately, that's just not possible. Healthcare providers are forced to click in their computers for 2 minutes for every 1 minute of direct patient care.
This is why. These are the clicks that I have to complete for a single test for a single patient. If you look closely, they say things like class, action, priority. They're not even medically related. And then I have 10 more tests for that same patient and 20 more patients after that.
And this leaves them with 2 options. A provider can choose to multitask while seeing patients, and that means your medical care is left on the back burner while they're clicking. Or they can choose to focus on you and in turn spend hours of uncompensated time charting at home and even on the weekends.
This ultimatum is a lose-lose situation. And ultimately, it has led to a healthcare workforce that is stressed, exhausted, and burnt out. And while COVID may have contributed to this, ultimately there's over a decade of research to show that this is not a COVID problem, this is a typing and clicking problem. And with Speak It, we plan to address this.
Our team is building the Siri for healthcare providers. With this product, healthcare providers can automate data entry tasks with their voice, which eliminates the need for manual typing and clicking in their computers. This reduces provider burnout, improves patient care, and also increases profits. Let's take a look at our product in action.
Order iron panel and glucose and vitamin D and chest x-ray.
This is our patent-pending voice-to-action technology that gives time back to healthcare providers. With our demo, end users have seen a 55% improvement in workflow efficiency on order tasks, and this number will only increase as we automate more tests in the system. To patients and providers, this is incredibly valuable. And I want to draw your attention to this quote where it says, listed tasks should be things that matter. Things that are in alignment with your objectives and do not distract from what you should really be doing. Ultimately, healthcare providers should really be focused on their patients every second of their workday.
To achieve this, healthcare providers will access our HIPAA-compliant cloud-based mobile app and pair it with their computer's medical record system. Once paired, providers will be able to use short phrases of speech to automate complex tasks. For example, Speak It turns order x-ray into all 10 clicks associated with that specific test without even prompting the order window.
Our back-end algorithms are the real key to this innovative functionality, where Speak It takes short words and turns that into many unspoken clicks. The way we accomplish this task is by integrating information from various sources, including the chart and insurance provider billing rules, and then we use our back-end algorithms to automate the intermediate clicks. Now, this means that our product does not need FDA approval, and these back-end algorithms are also the source of our provisional patent. And so I would now like to focus in on a specific aspect of these algorithms, and we're going to revisit our demo one more time.
Order lipid panel and complete blood count.
Drawing your attention to the words in parentheses, these are diagnoses that are paired to a given test, and this pairing is required by insurance companies to justify reimbursement. This is a manual, error-prone pairing process, and it leaves money on the table.
Speak It's rule-based algorithms solve this problem by automating the correct pairings, which increases efficiency and maximizes reimbursement. If no justification is found in the chart, our product notifies the provider so that they can make the necessary changes.
You sure you want questions along the way? Okay.
Please.
Yeah.
Can you go back one slide? At what point does this match the ICD and the CPT codes? Because most of the EMRs, as you know, don't have rules built into them. They have to go fetch them, get it wrong most of the time, and so forth. So I appreciate the words, but how do you actually match to get a claim ready to go without the proper ICD and CPT that goes along with it?
So in our workflow, the provider will have to put in the diagnosis into the chart prior to completing the order tasks. Once the provider has the diagnosis in, our back-end rule-based algorithms take the billing rules from the insurance providers. That's what we're building right now, and that's how our demo currently works. We've chosen a very select number of tests to prove as our kind of proving ground for that. And now we're trying to expand that into a more robust source that's prepared for the clinical environment, where a diagnosis then takes our algorithm, it hears what the provider says, and then it automates the selection to the diagnosis based on what's approved or not approved.
So just to be sure, it's dependent upon you getting the rules from the insurance payers. Is that what I heard?
Correct, which we actually draw from the internet and publicly available sources.
Thank you.
Our product also maintains patient safety, and our speech recognition technology will be medically optimized as well as integrate machine learning to improve over time with the physician's use. Machine learning is not the only way that we ensure patient safety, though. Even today, as you can see here, this is from Epic's EMR, or electronic medical record, providers have to sign their orders, which forces the provider to do a manual check of what was ordered to ensure that it was correct. This will make sure patients and providers are confident in using our product.
And these features place Speak-It in the clinical documentation improvement market, which is valued at $15.5 billion and is expected to grow at a 21.8% compounded annual growth rate over the next 5 years.
This growth is because the healthcare industry is undergoing unprecedented transformation as a result of the COVID pandemic. Ultimately, our value proposition of providers, patients, and profits is perfectly aligned to fit with the trends of hospitals that are looking to keep their providers happy, patients satisfied, and staying profitable. This will lead to success as we go to market. And now that we've reviewed our problem and solution as well as the opportunity, we want to give you a few minutes to ask any questions or get clarification.
Sorry, the CAGR's over how many years?
5.
5, okay.
No, give me an idea of the EHRs. How many are there? They're proprietary in nature, I assume. How difficult is it to get into each system? How are you going to scale that?
There are many, over 250 total electronic health record systems, EHR, EMR, interchangeable essentially. And so the top few players in the market are Epic, Cerner, and a few others, but just those two alone comprise over 60% of the market. Those are the biggest players. They hold most of the large hospital space, and then the remaining players focus more on more niche subspecialties and outpatient offices. So in our go-to-market strategy, we're targeting those more niche fields to be a narrow solution to a fewer number of people, but to do more comprehensive work within their workflow. So not trying to be everything to everyone, but focusing on specific groups. We'll talk more about that in a little bit.
Is that green space, that niche you're going after, as opposed to dragon-dominated?
Correct, yes. Yep. I wasn't familiar with green space, but I assume you mean
Empty,
untapped
white
by
space,
competitors.
open,
Yes.
right,
Yep.
yeah, exactly.
That's exactly correct. So to your point about getting into these systems, because of COVID and recent trends that are improving adoption rates of innovative products, these EHR programs have all developed and expanded their third-party developer platforms. Most of these platforms are strictly pay to play. You have to pay an upfront fee to get their APIs and all of those things. And then you have to prove yourself and your technical capabilities to end up launching on their platform.
So in general, they're open platforms, or they encourage third-party developers?
They encourage it,
Okay.
yes. Some play nicer than others, but Epic is one of the more ruthless EHRs to play with, so we're not targeting them in our early stages. But ultimately, as we prove our viability, it will become in their best interest to partner with us as we drive efficiencies and satisfaction on the platform.
To what extent do you think some of those big players would develop a similar technology?
So for the EHR specifically, it's not in their core competency to build out these features. We talked to an employee from Epic as well as Cerner, and they both said a similar message, which is that they are focused on keeping uptime on their platform at 100%. Their core critical features drive the interaction in the clinical environment. And when any sort of little glitch happens in their UI or making sure orders are flowing properly in their systems, that goes to the top of their priority list. Any nice to have feature goes down. So building out a complex speech recognition system is not on their core competency list, and that's why they don't do it.
Okay.
But based on that real quickly, so is that kind of, I think you got some different exit strategies that are in there and things like that. You'll probably get into that.
Yep.
And then also, just so you had some tests cases, or you've got some nurses that are currently using it, or you've got some validation models, so we'll go into that too again.
You're foreshadowing my
Okay,
next
perfect.
point.
I will stop talking at
Love
this point.
that.
Awesome. So as we transition into our business model, I'd like to quantify our value. We've partnered with 2 healthcare practices, Southfield Pediatric Associates and the Long Island Osteoporosis Center. And using their data, we've modeled the additional yearly revenue that a practice can generate using Speak It. For the average doctor, a 55% reduction in order time saves 2 minutes per patient, which also allows for 2 additional visits per day. This equates to about $100,000 of additional yearly revenue per doctor. And based on these value projections and industry analysis and over 200 hours of customer discovery, we're confident in going to market with a software as a service business model at a price point of $300 per month per user. At scale, roughly 25% of that will make up cost of goods sold, and then we'll also incentivize adoption by offering bulk discounts within our price.
Our target customers will be healthcare organizations that range from mid-size to enterprise scale, and we'll start by addressing primary care specialties before expanding so we can build domain expertise with these customers. Ultimately, our end users within these organizations will be physicians, physician's assistants, nurses, and nurse practitioners.
And the industry sales cycle for these customers operates roughly about 9 to 12 months and includes 4 phases. The first phase has to do with identifying and building relationships with the key decision makers in those target health organizations. And then after identifying those individuals, we'll provide a sandbox product demo that will entice management into an official product trial.
At this point, it will be necessary to integrate into these systems so we can deliver our product demo to end users when they can then trial it. So this process, we will use Redox. They are an outsourced solution for integration complexities. They cost $50,000 per year as an upfront fee, and then they provide their established distribution networks into electronic health record systems. So it kind of helps address the issue you were asking about earlier with integrating into these systems. From there, we'll begin our trial phase of our contract. These are paid trials, and this is the period when the customer can breach the trial at any point and cancel the order and not end up committing to the long-term contract. This is a critical aspect of converting our customers, and we will really emphasize success in this phase. Finally, we will shift to the full-time contract portion and locking in committed paying users for the long term. And in this industry, we've found that the average contract lengths are between 3 to 5 years for similar products that are on the market today. This gives us an opportunity when we have our long contracts with these customers as our product becomes an invaluable aspect of their workflow. It means that we can give our product for free to medical residents, trainees that are in the systems of our customers. And this has 2 benefits. It expands our socially responsible mission beyond just the patient-provider interaction. It actually helps to prevent burnout before it occurs in these medical trainees. Even more than that, it also gets them hooked on our product during their training. So when they enter the workforce, then they're stuck with it because they love it so much and they can't give it up. So it's a win-win.
And while we're still in product development, we're already building out our sales pipeline. We have 5 signed letters of intent and 2 formal partners. These will be the early adopters of our SOM and account for about $500,000 of annual reoccurring revenue. As we grow, we'll expand into our SAM, which consists of healthcare hubs in the Midwest, where we've already developed professional relationships in 1 formal advisor. And then scaling to the national level, our total addressable market is $15.5 billion, which represents 4.3 million providers. But this market is not without competition. But our speech-to-action functionality will give us the competitive edge.
Today, providers have 3 options to deal with their charting burden. The first is to hire an assistant, and they cost roughly $40,000 per year. That assistant can follow the doctor around and complete their manual charting for them. These assistants are called medical scribes. I actually was one before going to medical school. And they're highly error-prone, take it from me, because of our poor training.
Second, all major systems offer templates that automate clicks with a preset selection. However, these templates rarely ever match a patient needs and usually need manual adjustment, or a provider risks adding or omitting a templated click that just doesn't apply.
Finally, there are speech-to-text products like Dragon and Suki. They typically range from $100 per month per user to $200 per month per user. However, I want to make something very clear. These products are speech-to-text. They allow a user's speech to go into a text box. That's it. They do not automate the on average 4,000 mouse clicks in a healthcare provider's workday. This requires our speech-to-action technology. Speakit solves the problem of these mouse clicks by providing a comprehensive keyboard and mouse workflow solution. We believe this will fundamentally disrupt this market, and it will allow us to be successful.
Can your product be run in parallel with the other speech-to-text or tools that they're using now?
That's a great question. Hypothetically speaking, yes. But honestly, we don't believe anyone would. And the reason for that is because it would be cumbersome to pull out your Dragon app and then to pull out our app. And again, going back to the solution, it's an app on your phone that allows the provider to use existing hardware to get their speech into the computer. So it would require the two different app interfaces, and that would just be too much friction. So really, we're targeting the green space, like you mentioned earlier. And then as we prove our viability, we're hoping to overcome switching costs for our customers.
So we'll also stop here and see if you guys have any other questions.
Can you speak to the letters of intent again? Go back to that.
Yeah, we'll keep it here. So we have 5 letters of intent right now. 2 of those are existing partnerships with Sato Pediatrics and Long Island Osteoporosis and Arthritis, and then 3 other letters of intent from different customers who are not formally partnered with.
To use the service?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And what would that mean monetarily? Like for one of those customers, what does that mean from a dollar standpoint?
It means that they're committed to entering into the trial period.
Okay.
So breachable from that point on, but it's a paid trial at our existing price point.
Okay.
You talked about your target market a little bit, and you mentioned hospitals. You kind of weeded out Epic and Cerner, and I thought you were going down the 40% that's fragmented, Meditech, blah, 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 blah. Then I see ambulatory clinics, and I don't need to tell you the world is different, right? What goes on in an ambulatory clinic is very different than what happens in a hospital. So help us with the target market a bit more, because proving it out in those 2 freestanding clinics is a home run, don't get me wrong. But then turning around and selling it into the hospital market is, you know, Venus and Jupiter. So help us with that, if you will. How do you expect that to translate?
Sure. So in the beginning, like I said, primary care to build domain expertise before expanding. So that is our target market. That's probably going to be years 1 to 4, maybe even 5. So when we go to our SOM, which were those academic medical centers where we're already developing relationships, those are going to be our testing grounds for future growth, but not in the initial years of our production. So as we build domain expertise in primary care, we'll get the lay of the land, ultimately then expanding into the inpatient setting where the lion's share of the market is in the future.
Alrighty.
Will you guys get into the sales dynamic of it? Because obviously it's going to be heavy up from that standpoint to probably, you know, to win hearts and minds, and that's probably one of the most competitive worlds out there, especially with the rules and everything else that's put on, you know, what you can't do as a rep these days. So yeah, I think that becomes a big part. So I'm hoping you guys will discuss that.
We actually don't officially discuss that in our pitch, but I can address it now. And kind of a funny note, as a scribe, I used to love when the reps would come in and bring lunches, and then they got rid of that at our office and said no more. I was pretty bummed, but I understand why, for good reason. So we've heard from pretty much every single person we've talked to, literally, I'm not exaggerating, that they want this product. The validation is there, the pain point is there, the solution, if we can deliver it in a way that works in the real world with a high degree of accuracy and maintain patient safety, they want it. And so ultimately, if we get those initial customers, the LOIs that we have, and we put our product into their hands and the trials can prove our viability, we think the market is going to pull our product in as opposed to us really needing to push it.
Okay, so now let's talk about why our team is qualified to see this through and what we'll do with your investment. Kai is a medical student with a deep understanding of provider workflows, as you can tell. Michael, our technical lead, he actually isn't here with us today, but he's a computer scientist that does research in machine learning, and I'm an MBA student with 5 years of experience in marketing and finance. Supporting our dedicated team, we have a Microsoft, is it the next slide? We have a Microsoft employee who works for us on nights and weekends. And then we also have advisors that will be critical to our success. And together their backgrounds span healthcare, hospital administration, scaling a startup, building commercial software, and also machine learning. And so your $20,000 will enable our team to advance our prototype for fundraising and also to buy into Cerner's health record developer program. And it may seem like a risk to put all of our financial resources into this one aspect of our company. It's actually really the best course of action because our product is so important for what we're doing.
So this contracted software developer help, as well as Cerner's electronic health record developer program, will enable us to reach our next inflection point in our growth as we develop our product. We need to scale the back-end algorithms that we addressed in the second product demo as they relate to the insurance companies, and ultimately we need to prove that our product can handle more of the clinical complexity that we've already discussed. Now, as Isla and I shift into our financials and our ask, I do want to address that some of the information you're going to see differs from what our business plan was. And this isn't because we made a mistake on our slides, it's because we actually learned and sought feedback and talked to investors to improve since the point of submitting our business plan about a month ago. So today we're asking for $500,000, which is the necessary capital to expand our team, to bring on that Microsoft developer. He's actually committed to joining as a full-time CTO if we're able to get this funding. And that will allow us, along with 2 other developers, to build out those back-end algorithms. The plan is to use the information that we have from insurance providers, build out text mining algorithms that allow us to automate the process of what we've done manually in our earlier product demo, which is taking those complex documents, hundreds of pages long, and finding the billing codes that match up with the diagnoses, CPT codes, all of that in the chart. So ultimately, together, we're confident that $500,000 will enable us to validate this solution. And from there, we'll expand, raise a seed round, and grow. One other note I do want to mention, we actually have 3 commitments to this round for a total of $100,000 between those 3. One is from Vilhard Growth Partners, and then 2 angel investors on top of that.
So as Kai mentioned, we shifted into that pre-seed round to fund our salaried developers. But I'd like to focus on a few key financial points that have to do after we start our seed round. So our early adopters will account for our first sales in year 2 and account for $500,000 of annual recurring revenue. Later that year, a Series A capital infusion will propel our growth into 15 additional Midwest organizations. And then finally, in year 5, we'll break even as we improve our product's functionality and expand its services. And then also, as he mentioned, an updated version of our financials is available in our appendix once we get to our final Q&A.
Your investment in Speakit has high upside potential. And today, we believe that success in implementing our speech-to-action technology in the healthcare space with high barriers to entry will enable massive scaling into additional industries as well. And this ultimately will lead to high exit potentials. That could include from an EHR program, an electronic health record program like Epic or Cerner acquiring our product, or from one of our competing products like Dragon or Suki or DeepScribe or even M-Modal. But today, I want to emphasize, we are solely focused on an unsolved problem in healthcare because our team is committed to making a difference that matters. Despite this great, we're focused on an unsolved problem in healthcare because our team is committed to making a difference that matters. I want to show you this shirt. This is what that difference looks like. This was given to me by one of my patients during my 3rd year in medical school, not because of the amount of clicks that I was able to execute in her chart, but because of the amount of time that I was able to spend with her during her care. This was only possible because I'm a medical student. I don't have the same charting burdens as full healthcare providers with the long white coats. I believe every patient and every provider should deserve to form these meaningful connections. Join us on our mission to help healthcare help all of us. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Good job. I have a question in regards to the existing competitors, particularly like Dragon or all those other guys. What's the difference? This sounds like a feature rather than a whole product standalone. You have a lot of people you'd need to basically, even though you're not competing directly with them or trying to displace them. If they get a wind of this and they realize there's an opportunity for automating clicks via speech, which they are already entrenched in, one feature ad could disrupt your entire business model. How do you address that? I'm sure you've just talked about it.
Yeah, so 2 kind of responses to that. First of all, we have looked at lots of industry research, and it shows the top 5 competitors in our space, including Dragon, et cetera, own about 80% of the market share. And then all the other players after that have about last 20. So first of all, we believe we can carve out that green space and make a business for ourselves that has high chance for success, especially in the early stages as we validate our product, regardless of whether or not Dragon implements one of its features. But now I want to tell you why they won't. Ultimately, what we're doing is different because we involve the coding and billing process, whereas putting speech into a text box has nothing to do with the coding and billing, CPT codes, all of that complexity. So that is where our provisional patent lies, is on our back-end algorithms of how we implement the insurance process in the coding and billing, and ultimately that's our true value differentiator from those competitors. They're more focused on their distribution advantage, scaling their solution to as many providers as possible. They're less focused on getting involved in the complex insurance algorithms.
Okay.
Talk to us about language a little bit. As you know, because you've been in this, our healthcare system is fraught with, you say one thing, it means another. That's one of the reasons why Dragon and everybody took so long to get where they are. It's gotten better. I'd love to hear that you're going to address this and that you're going to help everybody speak, whatever version of English means the same thing all the time, every day. But I'm skeptical. So tell us, how are you going to deal with that? And then how are you going to deal with the fact that even if you do get it right up front, when you send it to the EMR, it wasn't built to accept that nomenclature, that specific description. Help everybody with this, right? 'Cause
Sure.
I'm really hoping you have an answer for this.
Yeah.
It'd be great if you do.
So I'll kind of give two aspects to this answer. The first is from more of a cultural competency standpoint. We actually believe there are a lot of opportunities with our product to help providers speak in a native tongue with their patients. There are many, many Spanish speakers in our country in the healthcare system, as well as other languages. And we're planning to implement in the very long term other languages so that you don't need to speak in English to dictate in English. You can speak in Spanish and it will dictate it in English in your chart, because that's the kind of common convention
I'm
in the
not
chart.
even that complex. I just happened to notice before when you gave us your demo at the beginning that you said vitamin and it put up vitamin D. That's what I'm talking about. When somebody says vitamin,
Vitamins versus supplements.
it doesn't always mean what it came up to be. So that's what I'm really talking about.
So-
You can save all the other, right?
Sure.
But doesn't always mean what you meant it to mean, right? You can't say it completely. So how are you going to deal with that issue?
So that's the second part of the answer.
Yeah.
So with our product, because we're automating orders in the clicking, that's our go-to-market strategy, is we're automating orders and then expanding into other tasks as we master this initial one. With orders, we're going to use like a call-out word, like, hey Siri, you need to say that before Siri starts listening. With our product, same feature. So the provider knows that they're calling this task, they know they need to order, and because of that, they're going to use specific language that's intuitive. So as you saw in our demo, order complete blood count is all that's required to access the complete blood count in the order, but they're not going to say order vitamin and have that go to vitamin D, because they know I just said order, and I know I need to order vitamin D specifically, not something
What
else.
if they say complete blood count? What if they say CBC? Okay, so,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, to his point, definitions, multiple definitions maybe that needs to come. And then what about training for all of those HCPs on that nomenclature? Is that baked into your plan as well? Some kind of nomenclature training or?
We're trying to keep the training process of getting a provider onto our product as simple as possible. So things like CBC, complete blood count, we will account for that.
Okay.
So it allows a provider to say either and it gets to the same endpoint. And as far as kind of the more nuances of the speech to text components with vitamin and vitamin D and all those supplement, exactly. When it's in the text boxes, that isn't as important for the billing purposes. So in that point, it's okay to have those differences mean different things. But in the order aspect alone, that needs to be very specifically targeted to the CPT codes, the billing on the back end. And so that's why we're requiring that order as the call out. Okay, now we're in the order realm as opposed to speech to text realm, and you're going to use very specific jargon.
Got it. Thank you.
Just a quick comment for you as we close. I would love to see you pull this off. Are you sure you understand with your target market? If it's the hospital-based doctors, they're employed. They don't want to see 2 extra patients a day. Sorry. So your value prop there, just be careful in your market, because if you're freestanding, great, give me more money. If you're an employed doc at the hospital, just keep an eye on it.
I completely agree. The one kind of silver lining, I would say, even if the administrator says, oh, sorry, see 2 more patients or you're fired, the silver lining is that they're seeing 2 more patients but spending more time on things they like doing, seeing a patient, and less time on the things they don't like doing.
Nice job, very nice job.
Thank you.
Well, hi, nice to meet you guys. I'm Ariel. My co-founder is actually stuck at the border in Canada, so it's going to be me alone, and this is going to be my first time ever presenting Pekka alone. So hopefully I do a good job and give it justice. But yeah, we're Pekka Produce. I'll just start it off. So basically, this whole thing started when me and my co-founder went down to our local produce terminal, and we found that thousands of pounds of fresh produce was actually being thrown out each day. It's pretty nuts. These are actually photos taken from our city, and it was honestly we couldn't believe it at all. And we looked into the problem even further, and it turns out that $3.1 billion worth of produce is actually thrown out each year in Canada, just because they look kind of weird or they're surplus. And that translates to around 10 to 20% on the farm level, but also 8% of all food wasted annually is here. Meanwhile, I think you guys are all experiencing this, but food costs are at their highest. So since 2010, we were actually at the peak. 10% inflation this year has made it almost impossible to buy fresh produce at a good price. And meanwhile, 8 to 10% of all greenhouse gases all comes from food waste. So Pekka was born, and our mission is to fight food waste and empower access to affordable and healthy diets. So introducing Pekka Produce. We're an online grocery service delivery service in Vancouver. And what we do is we take imperfect and also surplus produce, and then we deliver it straight to consumers for up to 40% off grocery prices. We have a lot of partnerships with farms and wholesalers in the Vancouver area, and then we deliver everything by e-tricycles and also cars. These are actually solar powered, and it's quite cute. You can actually see the person biking. They put in the work every week. But even though we're starting off with produce, our vision is to eventually become Canada's leading online sustainable grocer. Since we've launched, and it's only been 10 months actually, we've been able to get over $150,000 worth in sales, and that translates to around $400,000 saved for people on their grocery bill. We've also saved 100,000 pounds of produce, which is no easy task. I have broken my back multiple times trying to carry these yam boxes. They're 40 pounds, and I have so many crazy stories, but we can get into that in Q&A. And our business model is really simple. It's a subscription service, but also you can buy one-off boxes. So each box is 25 Canadian dollars, which is 20 US, give or take. The conversions are always kind of wonky, but you get around 12 pounds of fresh produce. So leafy greens, you got your yams. We've been getting a lot of sweet purple potatoes lately, and people have been loving those. But it very much varies. And actually, since we've started, that lifetime retention is outdated. We are actually at 91% lifetime retention for all of our subscription customers, which is insane. People who have been with us since the start have stayed with us, and they're not churning at all.
But you went from that 67 to 91?
Yes.
What changed?
I think when we first made the slide deck, it was when we first implemented the subscription. So 3 subscribers would make it turn into 67. But now it's been 7 months. We have a big subscription base. It's 200 people, and now we have a 91% retention rate with those 200 people.
Great.
And you started 7 months ago?
We started our first deliveries on May 31st.
Okay.
So 10 months. And these are our unit economics. Produce is already pretty low margin, but because of the stuff that we deal with, it's all surplus and imperfect, nobody else is buying this stuff. So we're actually price setters here, but we also want to make sure that farmers are compensated for their work. And that's kind of another problem that we try to solve here. So the majority of each sale goes to the cost of goods, which is the produce, and then it's split pretty equally between payroll, CAC, and delivery. And we have around 5 to 10% profit. And the cool thing about this is it only gets better. Just because in produce, volume is king. The more produce you're able to move, basically you're able to negotiate for very, very good prices.
On that point with the farmers, fascinating and fantastic, right? But are you competing with zero? In other words, if you don't buy it, is it waste? Or is there another something that goes on in there in the market that you're competing with?
Like the food bank.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Are you really competing with zero as a complete loss for the farmer, or not necessarily?
That's a really good question. So basically, if we don't buy it, there's a lot of things that, that can happen to it. So a lot of farmers, it just goes into like fertilizer, and also like if they have animals on their farm, they're able to feed their produce to them. But this is the cool thing. So like when I first heard about imperfect produce, I honestly thought it was a myth. I was like, there's no way that these kind of things just like are thrown out. And it's actually true, it is a myth. We say it's imperfect because it's good marketing. Ugly tomatoes get turned into like tomato sauce. Ugly like apples get turned into juice. But the stuff that we actually deal with is like surplus. So imagine you're like a farmer and you have a really, really good harvest. Let's say you harvest like 20,000 apples, but you only have 10,000 buyers on the other side. So what are you gonna do with those 10,000 apples? That's the stuff we deal with. It's fresher than grocery stores, and we tell people it's imperfect because it's surplus, but it's really just kind of like a marketing thing, and it's actually doing a lot more good for the world.
That was really helpful.
Yeah.
Really helpful, thank you.
For sure. Yeah, here's some good customer testimonials. Wow. We also have a lot of photos there that kind of demonstrate what our product looks like. And our customer persona, a lot of people think, oh, it's like students, but not at all. I always thought that was a cat. The people that really buy our products are like families. Like think moms who are honestly on the lower ends of income. They can't really afford groceries. So we're actually able to fill that gap. So they're buying these boxes to share with like their whole family. And they're usually very healthy and like environmentally conscious, and they're community driven. So our best customers have referred 10 other of their friends in their neighborhoods. And this plays in pretty nicely to like also our costs. When you're able to actually refer so many people in your neighborhood, the delivery goes down by a lot just because of the sheer density. So when we had, a good example of this actually is we delivered to the senior home, and the senior like citizens in this home love talking about Pekka, so they all order it, and we're able to deliver all of the boxes at once. And because of that, our delivery costs go like exponentially down.
I want to piggyback on Rick's last question really quick. So with that explanation now, there's always a surplus, or that seems like it could be a very, very volatile supply chain issue for you, and most farmers aren't going to run, or they're going to try to maximize their yield and not have surplus.
Yeah.
So I was surprised to hear that it's actually great produce, but it's surplus. So talk to me about the risks with that a little bit.
It's a good question. I've never gotten that one before. I think just from the sheer amount of farms, there's always like one guy who has like too much, but we don't really have like a model where it's like, oh, you can pick and choose what you want. It's like a very much like a mystery box service. So
sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, so we get everything from everywhere.
But is there without a doubt always a surplus?
I wouldn't say there's always a surplus, but there's enough people out there that there's always enough supply. We've never like gone to like, we've never had a bad like shortage in supply. If anything, it's more on the demand side. From farmers, we've always been taking less than what they can actually give us. But there might be a possibility.
What about like, well, I mean, 10 months, obviously, you haven't even been through a whole season, right?
Yeah.
So what about the last 10 years? Has there always been a surplus of, I guess is the supply chain going to dry up for you next season if they underplant, or, you know, I'm not familiar with
Natural
the terms.
disasters or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah. What's the risk to your business?
Okay, so that's a really good point, and I actually have another anecdote for this.
Great.
So there was a BC flash floods last year. Basically, all of the roads were shut down. All of our farmers were affected. Some of them actually aren't going to be around this summer, but we also work with wholesalers. So because of all of like the road closures, all of the imports and exports that come from like BC were like completely halted. And because of that, there was actually a massive like surplus. So if I actually bring you right here, do you see this big like spike, that orange spike?
Yeah.
That is the BC flood flashes or flash floods. My co-founder was actually in a mudslide that week. So she was like in the hospital, and that was like all me like right there. Just saying. And what happened was all of these wholesalers had way too much food on their hands because they couldn't like move it. So because of that, like farms can be affected, but there's always wholesalers. Like think about like how everybody needs to eat. There's always kind of like supply in that. I'm not sure if that really answers your question. I'm sure like down the road this is like a major risk, but I don't know. I feel like there's always been surplus.
I mean, it's just a big assumption that there's always going to be a surplus. I
Yeah.
guess that's my concern.
For sure.
And how are you going to mitigate that from a scale standpoint as you grow and you get into other regions across all of Canada? Like, how are you going to manage that risk?
Mm-hmm. So along with surplus, there also is like the imperfect stuff. So when you think about like the juice stuff, like the apples that go into juice. We can buy those as well.
Got it, okay.
I wouldn't say it's like fighting food waste, but it is like much, much cheaper than like regular produce.
It goes against your social ideology, but it
Yes.
still protects the business.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Are the farms exclusively in BC? Is it throughout Canada? Where are you getting most of your produce now?
For us, it's all BC, just
Okay.
because we're in Vancouver, but we also get all the imports. So think like California. Vancouver is like a major like port for all of like Canadian produce imports. Yeah.
Hey, Chad, I think they need another flood, though.
I agree.
Because it took the whole business to another level, right?
It really did.
I have a question,
Let's
but
hope not.
I'll wait till the end because you might answer it later, so.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't want another flood, by the way.
Oh, no, just kidding.
I'll talk about how we won our first customers, actually. So it kind of goes back to like the network effects. So what we did was I made a fake Facebook account, and I pretended I was a mom. It was like Burnaby Mommies, and I joined it. I put like a profile picture of me and like a baby, and I was like, yo, mommies, like I found this really cool like delivery service. And then from there on, it just kind of like spread like wildfire. And that's how when we realized like our customer persona and also the people who would stay along with us. The mom group is pretty tight. But we track a lot of things coming from that. So we just think that that's like a very like cool network. Yeah. And in terms of scaling our customer base, we do a lot of like digital marketing, but our CAC is actually like extraordinarily low for a D2C brand. Like $5 for a $25 box in CAC, and with a 91% like lifetime retention rate, it goes a long way. And we think that money could really like scale us even further. So think about like how much money, like more we could grow if we had more capital in marketing. But we also do like B2B sales and also like corporate sales. We did a pilot with Lululemon where they were gifting a lot of these boxes to their employees. And we've actually been exploring a lot of like affordable school lunch programs. So we've been in talks with schools to offer this. Basically, they have like kitchens and they like make it all up for their students. And we help do a lot of that.
And that's an example of a real box, right?
Yes.
So that's what if I was signed up for as a consumer, that's what would show up at my door.
Exactly.
Okay.
And like all of these videos actually, like we didn't pay anyone to do it. These are our customers like posting it and like sharing it. Yeah.
Are you too early to think about an LTV to CAC ratio, or is it's still all over the place? How do you think about that currently?
I'd say it's too early for us to see just because it's only been a few months. But with like the retention rate, I think like it's pretty high. And our CAC is like extraordinarily low as well. So I don't think it would give like a good indicator since we're not spending too much. And I'll say that the CAC actually comes from like referrals. So basically as a customer, you can refer a friend, give them $5 and you get $5. So that $5 is the CAC for the new customer and like the old one. So it gets kind of weird with the math. I tried it and I was like, man, like how am I supposed to like see like how many people like one person refers? But I will get back to you once I do.
So question.
I'm sure it'll take time.
It looks like your business model is primarily done on the pre-distribution of produce, let's say to grocery stores or whatever, that's
Yeah.
surplus, as you said. So what about post-distribution when trucks deliver to, let's say, grocery stores, let's say, perfect produce? They also have surplus. So, it's surplus from the distribution process from, delivery, not from the farmers directly. So do you have any plans for that post-surplus? So the reason I'm bringing that up is because I live in New York City and I see every day all these like little street vendors, like the fruit guy on the corner selling the produce, and how they get their produce is from the trucks that deliver to the grocery stores, and anything that's left over, they just dump it to those little street vendors, the carts. So that could be another surplus opportunity to maybe capture on somehow.
Yeah. So in grocery stores, they have a term for it. It's called shrinkage. And when we first started the business, we were like, oh, grocery store is easy target. And we talked to a bunch of these grocery store managers, and we were like, hey, like, how much stuff actually goes to waste? And most of them said like 1 to 5%. So it's actually a very like small amount. They've been in the industry for a very long time, so they've really figured it out. And there's, I think, a lot of other like applications that do help that process even more. There's a group that we're really tight to in Canada called Flash Food, and they deal with all of like the grocery store stuff. But that's like close to expiration dates, very, very like dirt cheap. And they also donate a lot of that to the food banks.
Yeah, I don't mean like the food that is already in the grocery stores that maybe they're getting rid of after it's starting to go bad or something. I mean, at the point of delivery, when a truck goes to deliver to the grocery store, they'll load a whole truck of, I'm just making this up, oranges. They'll go around and then they'll deliver based on the orders that grocery store will purchase, you know, how many crates of oranges or whatever. And then on that truck, they'll have some excess. They're not filling the truck necessarily to the order.
Yeah.
So there's surplus always on these trucks.
Yeah, so those trucks are from the wholesalers, and we work with
Yeah.
the wholesalers.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so all of that stuff we would actually take.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And is that built in today? In other words, just what you described, just what she described, your answer, is that a way you keep down your acquisition, distribution, costs, and it does help with scalability, or not yet?
But the question that she asked, I think it was more on like the supply.
Yep.
So like we actually take all of that. And I mean, we get it for a lot cheaper than like the vendors do.
Yep.
So I guess in a way it kind of does help. But I feel like most of the stuff in like rejected produce, like it's like all around like 70–80% off like wholesale already. So I don't think that it can go any lower. Maybe we can negotiate more, but I think it's like we want to keep all parties involved happy. Yeah.
Well, since you can't really go lower on costs, what do you think, because your price point at 25 and everything's gone up.
Yeah.
I'm in the wine business, you know, bulk grapes, vineyard, all that kind of stuff. Everything's going up. People are expecting it. Easy to go down in price, very difficult as you're setting up a platform to go
Yep.
up. Have you explored the idea of taking your price higher to give you a little bit more margin?
Yeah, so that's a great question as well. And I think in produce, margins will always be slim, but we don't always have to be like strictly only doing produce. So there's a lot of things that happen in like food, not outside of like fruits and vegetables, that can be imperfect. Think of like an olive oil bottle with a sticker that's like upside down. That stuff is considered imperfect, and you can actually sell a lot of these stuff. I will talk about this in a bit as well, but by introducing like pantry staples, you can increase your average order value without having to really like bring the prices of like the vegetables up.
Sure. I just wouldn't be afraid to do it because everybody's taking price now, so it's a perfect time because everybody's
Yeah.
expecting it. So if I wouldn't leave any money on the table.
Yeah.
But I get it from the upsell part because I'm a HelloFresh guy.
Oh, yeah.
So it's every week, and they always try to upsell you and all that. But I mean, I love the service; it's fantastic. But you know, I'm spending $20 US for basically 3 different servings,
Yeah.
and it doesn't look like that. This is a
Yeah.
lot better.
I am not a meal kit person. I'm definitely a grocery kit person. I tried HelloFresh and I was like, I feel like I'm making like a lot. There's no way they're not making a lot just by like get the produce that we get. So yeah, I'll actually bring you guys to like the competitors, talk a little bit about that. Most of these are Canadian companies, but I will bring up Misfits Market and Imperfect Foods because we are in the States. Usually in Canada, everyone's like, who is that? But I think you guys might be familiar.
Yeah, absolutely.
So very much so, we are like the Misfits Market of Canada. Basically everything they do, we do, except we are in Canada. And I think this is going to be like, oh, why can't Misfits and Imperfect do that? But with the meal kit part, I think basically all of the top meal kits in Canada are Canadian owned.
Yeah.
So like, it doesn't really like, even though we're very like similar in like cultures, I think like the people that like start in Canada do the best. And
No
that's
question.
been proven with like the meal kits. And Pekka, like we're the only people in Canada doing this. So it is entirely like a greenfield opportunity for us to take the whole market. And like we're growing pretty fast without like any CAC, while Misfits like raised like hella $1 million and like went crazy with it. And like I like to put that in like the back of my head. I'm like, okay, like if they can do it, what's stopping me from doing it,
Yeah.
Good attitude.
There you go.
So
Absolutely.
it is a proven business model.
No question.
They have scaled to hundreds and thousands of Americans across the country, and they are not like seeing any like supply shortages too. And that's kind of like why I'm pretty reassured. And like,
Well, obviously, with global warming and everything happening, I mean, there's going to be more and more farms that will plant up north.
Yeah.
California's going to be drying up. So.
it'll be nice.
you're in
No
the
more
right spot.
Canadian winters. I mean, on one hand, I get more produce. On the other hand, it's global warming. But it's a trade-off there. But I think this slide just kind of goes to show like it is a proven business model, and we are going to be the first and the best players in the Canadian market.
I have a question about scalability. So is your idea to just stay in the BC area, and, you know, how much can you supply? How broadly can you go? How can you expand to other markets, you know, in Canada or beyond, or
Yeah, definitely.
cross-border, whatever?
We're definitely not going to stay in Vancouver. I think it is like a very good beachhead market. When people think of like BC, they're like, oh, like hippies, like they love like reducing like food waste and stuff. But in terms of like supply, like every single like major city in Canada has a food terminal. I grew up in Calgary, which is like all like canola. But even then, like we had like big food terminals up in the north, and they're actually the same suppliers that we work with in BC. But here's the cool thing about it. It's like all of like produce is very like generational. It's like families passing it on to other families, and because of that, they kind of like sprawl over Canada. And once you're in, you're in. And what's cool is like Sang and I have no connections to the produce industry. So we really like fought tooth and nail to actually make these connections. And I have a lot of fun stories related to that too. But because of like how young we are by far the youngest players in the Vancouver produce market. But people really like working with us because we're very like refreshing in the way that we think about like fruits and vegetables. That's the whole reason why we actually got our supplier base, was because we're just new faces on the market, and it's like pretty inspiring, which I think is like kind of cute. They call us produce babies. Yeah. Market size, I mean, everybody eats. So we kind of just wrote the total value of like the Canadian surplus, and that's kind of like on a year-by-year basis, which is like nuts. Yeah. And again, as I was saying, like we're starting off with produce right now, but we're going to go even further. We have signed contracts with a lot of like these local like upcycled like foods. So Grainable is like they take like canola and then they turn that into like cool like flour that you can use. They take like beer grains and then turn that into flour for baking. And this is kind of like what we're aiming to like add onto our platform that you can add on in terms of like AOV, but also like the like olive oils that are like mismatched, like biscuits that are printed wrong. There's a lot of like weird things that you find in like the market, and like, you just want to sell them. So yeah, this is Sang and I. She is stuck with the TSA or whatever they do. But we are very, very entrepreneurial. I started 3 companies in high school, which were, it's kind of nuts that I think about it. And Sang is very much like a force to be reckoned with, I'd say. She like first started her like business like streak when like she was like 11. She made like a newspaper in like Vietnam, which is cool. And we have a lot of experienced mentors, and our team is only growing. In the last like week, I am so sleep deprived because I've been doing interview after interview. We're hiring like another like 6 people to join our team, and I mean this is kind of like our team size right now. So a lot of it's like out, like delivery drivers, packers, but we want to get more people full time.
Can you tell me about the ops manager? Because the big thing for me is as you scale, understanding consumer product goods for the last 27 years is going to be the logistics and be able to get it there in a timely manner, because this is it's a perishable product.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot that goes into that. So I see there'll be a critical mass where it gets really complex really fast to get the product to the people.
Yep.
So I'm just kind of curious what you're thinking from the logistics and who your ops guy is and all that, because that would be the next heavy phase of lifting that I would look into.
For sure. So what's cool about like produce is like we've talked to a lot of people who run like the meal kit companies, and they always tell us like, oh, I always wish I got like a bigger space because it's so hard to get like cold produce space. But because of the suppliers that we worked with, one of them has actually taken us under their wing, and we operate out of their warehouse. So we have like a whole like dedicated space, and in return we take all of their secondary produce, and they actually let us like pick and pack there. We actually use their pick and packing like fleet as well. So like we're all like kind of like equally involved in it. And this is something like me and like Sang we're like talking about just like 10 minutes ago, literally just the thought I had on the airplane. But I think what we want to do is like they are one of the biggest produce like warehouses in Vancouver. And I actually think that I want to give them like a stake of Pekka.
I was just going to say, that could be a good idea
Yeah.
to lock that in.
Through my mind.
Yeah, exactly.
If they're that much entrenched in you, that
Right.
entrenched already.
So
Yeah, bring 'em on.
I think I'm going to fly back to Vancouver after this and have a nice
Smart.
chat with him. But it's all like very much like connected. It's all on the same street. So we're gonna grow out of there, and I don't think like, at one point we're gonna have to move, and at that point, no, it's gonna be like a much larger team in a warehouse. But like these guys do all of the pick and packing for like meal kit companies in Canada already, and we get like a whole dedicated day with them now. Yeah.
I know we're getting to capital and what have you, but just real quick, is there much bootstrap capital in yet, or is it all in-kind, warehouse, all that kind of stuff, or did I miss a hard investment that any of you put in?
Yeah, so we are actually entirely bootstrapped. In terms of like the pick and packing, we pay them. Like for each box, we'll give them like a set amount, and that's why like our unit economics are so like flat and easy to like calculate. But I think by like doing like a cool like strategic partnership with the guys now, that's gonna get like a lot lower. Like we're gonna get like more profits just because like they have like an equal stake in the company. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
You got it. That's
got
good.
it? Okay,
Yep,
cool.
that's good.
Yeah. I think the next slide is outdated too, but the use of proceeds is going to marketing, yeah, and hiring and growth. I need to pay my employees, and it is coming out of my pocket right now. So yeah, that is it. This is Pekka. Thank you for listening, and I hope you guys join us on our mission to fight food waste and promote access to affordable food for all Canadians. Yeah.
Good job, thank you.
Thank you.
So how much have you put in?
How much? Well, I am still a student, and I pretty much put all of like my income into it. But the thing
Which is?
Not a lot. I'll say it's actually not a lot at all because we're profitable.
Yeah.
So when we first started, like maybe like a few $1,000s, and now we've scaled it to like $150,000 in like sales, right? We get like a lot of grants as well. So we do a lot of competitions like these, and then that lets us hire more people.
Sure.
I am very, very, like, if you talk to anyone, I'm very good with budgeting, and I make a little go a long way. So we won like a competition like just a few months ago, $10,000, and with that, I was able to turn it to $80,000 through like grants, like price matching, wage matching, and then I was able to hire someone full time. So that's kind of like my like mindset right now. But I also feel like that is like an inhibitor of growth. So like when you take like venture funding, what you're able to do is like you don't have to like be the scrappy. You can just like throw money at a problem and it gets solved instantly, but it gives you time to grow your business. And that's honestly what I think Pekka needs. And pretty much any D2C company, that's what they're aiming for as well. When you focus a lot on like the small like day-to-day stuff, in terms of like, hey, I might not make it to the next thing, like that's what like stops you from becoming the next like misfits.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good for you. Great attitude.
Thank you.
Just can't reinforce that enough. Great attitude.
Yeah, I used to work in consumer VC, and it was kind of like the one thing that I always saw in founders, or good founders and bad founders. And right now, I feel like I'm a bad one because I like have been like focusing so much on like trying to make things work in terms of like what we have now. But really, I should like. Okay, you're looking at me like, okay.
No. I just complimented the attitude and the approach simply because even if somebody throws $100 million at you, if you've already defined who you are and how you're going to operate, you won't spend that like Misfit did or does. You won't do it. And you'll make it feel like 10 times the money by virtue of what you're doing. So that's what I'm applauding. It's
Sometimes
fantastic.
the money is a curse for
It's
for new
fantastic.
businesses.
Thank you.
And they don't know how to budget, so I think that's good. Quick question, but well, we still have 2 minutes. I'm still hung up on the supply chain stuff, so I'm curious, I'm not familiar with the industry at all, but do the wholesalers have any sort of contracts that prevent them from monetizing this waste? Because you're kind of competing against them at the same time when they reject it. And so I guess from a scale standpoint, is that even an issue?
That's a really good question. No one takes the imperfect stuff for some reason. Like they could have contracts.
And nobody blocks it?
otherwise.
They say, I mean, it's like the wholesalers don't say you have to throw it away as part of our longstanding 10-year agreement?
No.
Or you haven't bumped into that at least?
Haven't bumped into it. Haven't seen it since I was.
Because I mean, if I was a wholesaler, I would prevent it.
Yeah. In terms of like imperfect stuff, like.
No pressure.
I'm trying to think of like a good answer here. I just haven't seen it.
That's okay. I mean, if you don't have the answer, you don't have the answer. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't think I have an answer for you.
Okay.
But wholesalers definitely have like more on the buyer side. They know exactly who their customers are, and they're going to serve those customers first before thinking about like the imperfect stuff. When you grab like the imperfect stuff, then you have to get like a whole different set of buyers. Think of like the juicers of the world. And there's actually a lot of cool like companies doing that. It's like they have juicing facilities within their warehouses, get the imperfect stuff turned into juice. That could be a threat, but honestly, like those juice people will probably like sell on Pekka, you know, in the long run. They'll sell like the juices upcycled. So.
Great,
yeah.
thank you.
Biggest challenge you worry about?
Biggest challenge is scaling, marketing. I think like I'm actually not worried at all about supply, but I want to make sure that demand goes high. And again, like that is entirely driven by money.
Good job.
Thank you, thank you.
You can do it solo anytime.